NRL Supercoach cheapies. We have 61 potential guys that I think could get a spot or are close to it at the moment. And it could be, that they get the spot from round 1. It could be that they get it in round 3 and they're one injury away. So we're going through the 61 of them all by position. So we'll kick it off with the halves. And what you will see is some highlighted guys. So when you see the highlights, that means that I think they're a potentially good option if they get the spot. Some guys, if they do get the spot, are probably not going to pick them anyway, or they're not ready for round 1 to take that spot. And we'll kick it off with Isaiah Katoa, and these guys are 400k and below in Supercoach, guys. So with Isaiah at 390, you'll see there that the pros, obviously, he's cheap. He's getting older. He's improving as a starting half in this league, and the cons there is that, do we think that he is going to exactly do that from round 1? That's going to be the big one, and no Wayne there. So you'll see there, guys, that if it's already got some stuff written, then I've spoken about these guys before in their separate videos. And if they haven't got anything written about them, I've just added them as new potential guys, and we'll just have a quick chat on those guys. But we saw Ilias and we saw Dodd in their trials and wasn't super excited by both of them. We saw Ilias do some of the main kicking, but looked like Kyle Flanagan was more in charge. So I think I'll leave Ilias out myself. Lewis Dodd at 336, I had some interest in, but watching him the other day, looked like his halves partner, who's a straight up rookie, looked more involved and getting around the park a bit, getting them around the park a bit more. Which Dodd at 336, it's not the worst price, but I think a lot of their attacks going to come from Walker and Latrell, so I find it hard to select him now. But we'll see how things roll out if we don't actually get like a Tom Duffy, which seems to be one of the guys down in that half position for us. Then you may have to spend a little bit more and unless you're going right up top, which could be hard to find that extra cash with the split TLT. So it's one thing to have a little look at. Tanner Boyd we haven't seen yet, and hopefully we do get to see him before round 1, but I don't think he'll make that squad for now. But yeah, it's interesting with that duel. Jamie Humphries at 305k, maybe fighting for that 14, but we haven't seen him play yet either. So keen to see that hopefully this week before we make any decisions. Ethan Sanders at 244. With him, I think he's third in line, so one injury away from being somewhat relevant if Fogarty was to go down, I think, or potentially even Ethan Strange there. Sean O'Sullivan looked great the other day, but it looks like he'll miss that round 1 side at 240k. Sanders Smith put on a lovely try assist, but it wasn't great outside of that. But at 237, he's a must-have in our sides, just at the price alone. And he has scored well before. And then Tom Duffy at 198. So all reports saying that he should get that spot in round 1, but does he keep it? If he's there round 1, he'll be in my side. Jack Bird at 379. We know that he has terrific numbers in the middle and on the edge. So let's just see him out there this week, hopefully. In the middle at 13 named, and then he'll be in a lot of sides at 379. It's still not incredibly cheap, but it's a pretty solid price overall. Finifiriaki at 368k. He definitely has some pros with potential for more minutes, but we do need to see him named on the edge to start in this week's trial for it to be of a little bit more interest for us. But at that price, it's pretty good at 368. You got Nafahu White, who has the duel along with Corey Horsburgh. And Nafahu looked really, really good, I thought, in that trial on the weekend. And if he does get that starting prop role, there should be some consistent minutes, which is what he didn't get last year. Corey Horsburgh, 355 for him with that duel, and he didn't even get the trial on the weekend. Paired him up with Joe Tarpanay, so very high likelihood that he does start. You had guys like Josh Papali'i even get a trial, so that shows the importance that he holds on Horsburgh in this season, which is hilarious how it worked out in last season. But if he's there round 1 starting, he'll be in my side and I'll be playing him. Kobe Hetherington at 338. He's a new one on this list just because it sounds like he's a good chance of getting the 13, but I just don't see the upside in him. His PPM's pretty gross and he'd have to play 50, 55 minutes, something like that, to be of some value. And I think you can just select a couple of guys ahead of him that have a better PPM and better upside. Matty Nicholson, still likely to be behind Hosking, but if he does happen to get that start in round 1, he'll be, there'll be some decent ownership around Matty for sure. Kai O'Donnell at 336 as well. I thought he ran the footy pretty well on the weekend, as much as the Cowboys got whacked, but he's probably not in the running for that spot straight up. Siwa Wong looks like he's going to be a bench middle. If he happens to get the starting 13 role and they do something weird with that position, then that could be interesting. But for now, it's probably just a watch. Trey Mooney at 317, got that opportunity on the weekend, but that likely is reserved for guys like Horsburgh and Tapane. So probably just a watch, especially if he comes off the bench. Matamua at 278. So we're obviously going through the second row forwards, guys. With Matamua, he played 13 on the weekend, actually looked pretty solid, but he's been the next thing for the Tigers for a while, and now they've ended up with a bunch of middles that have come over. We have Oren Keeley and Thomas Kant, two guys that I am really interested in if they happen to get the spot. But right now, I'm not sure if they get it. There's some reports that Adam Elliott, they're not going to look to re-sign him. So that's where Tom can get a spot. And I am waiting to see the Dolphins team list for the edges. If Keeley gets that starting spot, I'll be looking at him 100% at that really cheap 274 price for both of them. Josh Schuster there at 265. We know what he can do, but I don't think he's in contention. We have some new guys to the list here with Ryan Couchman, Jacob Laban, Katoga, and we have Josefsky there, and then Guymer following that. But with Couchman, if he gets the bench spot, I think there's an opportunity for him to be worth a lot more than 300k, considering what he was able to do in games last year. Jacob Laban, if he got the start on that left edge, that'd be awesome. Got guys like Halasima, who didn't actually pop in here as well, but yeah, keep him in your thoughts. Katoga, he did start for the Eels on their trial, and will be definitely interesting if he does get that start and you see like a Cartwright on the bench, which means there's a good chance that Katoga has jumped him. And then Josefsky, if he happens to get that start over Piakura, which was wild that he actually played left and Piakura was on the right. I thought that was pretty telling. But yeah, he's not a great scorer, but 232 is hard to ignore. You got Charlie Guymer at 232 as well. He's very, very interesting. Very Hopgood mold in that 13 role, and if Hopgood does miss time, then I think Guymer will get that spot. So he's close on the list. Valmarga, 232k, he did start on the edge, he can play some middle, he's got a bit of everything, so plenty of wraps on him, and he looked really nice in the trials. I was happy with how he looked. Blake Steep at 232, if he gets a bench role, there's definitely some minutes available. We'll just have to see if it's actually worth it with no injuries in the squad, or if they lose one of their middles, does he come into calculations? Jack Todd, 198k. He looked incredible in the trial on the weekend with some lovely footwork, so keep him in your thoughts. Aaron Clark at 391. Is the price a little bit annoying? Does he get the starting 13? I think people will take him if he does get the starting 13 job. David Mwale at 389. I think he takes the next step this year, and he had plenty of runs in that trial, him and Kepi. So they were using them plenty through that middle. I wonder if that'll happen when they have their full squad together. Emre Gula at 331 for him. A few people are interested in Emre, but I do think guys like Toby Couchman have stepped up in that younger role, and he looked okay at a few missed tackles, not a heap of runs like Couchman and any other guys in this team. So I think there's just too many forwards for him to be worth it. And then we do go to Royce Hunt at 249. He's definitely a guy that you need to be interested in at 30, 35 minutes, something like that. It should be enough. He was playing way less than that last year in the early 20s. So if he can get near the 30s, he should make money. Ben Takura, we just had reports that we should see him for some bigger minutes this year from coach. So he only got a couple of games last year, and at 232, he has a very damaging Supercoach game. Tom Amone at 232 as well. He looked pretty solid on the weekend. We know his stats coming over from Super League, so if he gets that spot on the bench, might be hard to avoid him, or one of these cheap guys at least in that front row forward spot. Moving to the hookers, Brendan Hands at 349. If he's got a bench hooker, it's going to be hard to take, and he's got the youngster, I think Riley. Yeah, Riley Price, one of the names there on the bench that did really well in that trial as a youngster. So keep an eye on that, and obviously Joey Lussick as well. If you get Brendan Hands for with no hooker on the bench, then that's the only time I'd take him potentially. Tom Starling at 342. It's a similar situation for him. If he's going to look like getting big minutes, then sweet, 342 is worth it. If we're not sure, then it's hard to take, I think, at 342. Jake Simpkin at 318. With him, you're looking at someone that is likely to get the spot for the first 3 weeks and scored a try, looked good on the weekend. Is that going to continue to happen? That's the big question. A big shout out, guys. If you haven't subscribed or hit follow on YouTube and podcasts, please do that. And if you're interested in looking at what's in the private group this year, jump in the description to check that out as well. I do appreciate everyone that's checking that out. We've got some Supercoach prizes along with some big fantasy and tipping and all the good stuff as well. We'll have Origin competitions and we'll have finals fantasy, finals Supercoach as well, where it's my scoring system is halfway between fantasy and Supercoach, which is fun. Blake Moser, 312 for him. Looks like he's going to be out to start the year, so keep him in your thoughts. Pete Mamazelis at 302. He didn't look incredible on the weekend and not expecting him to set the world on fire, but we'll have to see how their starting team shakes out. Corey Pakes there at 232. Scored 2 tries on the weekend, and that was ideal. If he's starting, I think there will be people that do take him at that lovely 232 price point. And again, it might depend on if you have Sandon Smith in the hooker and we don't get a Tom Duffy, do you move Sandon down and go for a cheap guy like Corey Pakes? Kurt Donahue seems to be gets put in a lot of positions and does a great job. But for Kurt at 232k, he's in the hooking position as well. And if he happens to get that 14 role, I can't imagine he'll be terrible, and I imagine he'll get some minutes. So not the worst pick, and looks like he's next up if Hammer goes down at fullback. So it's an interesting stash there for sure. Owen Paddy at 198k, we need to keep an eye out on him. If he gets a bench spot, he's very, very cheap as well. 16 to go, guys. Will Price, the 310, seems to be back up fullback and probably 6 at the moment. At a pinch, so he's an attacking player that'll be interesting at some point. Ty Munro, I'm still interested in somewhat. He looked really solid on the weekend. Big runs, but not a heap of meters at 110. 19 runs for 110. Interesting. Keep an eye on him in that first team and whatever else. Zach Labart pushing for that center spot if he's back right and fit coming off the ACL. So that's the worry with him. Fighting with Jackson Purdue, who we'll talk about in a sec. We got Junior Tupou at 381.8k. I think he'll improve on that left wing for the Dolphins. Just by how much is the question. Jesse Arthurs, people started with him last year. I think he actually begun fairly well, getting a try in Vegas. He looked great in the All-Stars game on the weekend, but he just doesn't seem to be Supercoach relevant for the most part. Needs to score a lot of tries, and if the Broncos can do well, I think he can as well. Carter Gordon injured to start the year, but keep in your thoughts. Jackson Portlow there, I don't think that he's in contention. You got guys like Rob Darby as well that didn't look spectacular on the weekend as well, but they did get hammered. You've then got Isaiah Tass at 327. I think we like him more in the centres, but it's a bit of an awkward price for someone that is probably not locked in for... You're probably 50-50 if he makes money, and we don't really like that scenario if he plays anything like last year on the wing. Fletcher Myers at 322, maybe close to the spot, but might also not be. Got Billy Smith at 317. If he happens to get that start, I think he'll be in a bunch of people's sides at this nice price. Stafford Toa at 288. Seems to be next up. It could be, there's some reports that Olam's not looking great at training. So if Stafford gets the opportunity, or if Adam Dewey's not right to go, then look at Stafford. But we'll have to see their trial team tonight as well. Jackson Purdue, 257 for him, fighting for that center spot as well. You got Jesse McLean at 234, fighting with his brother Casey for that wing spot. He'll be interesting for sure, and would have to be close to a must-have at the price point in a really good team. And then Rob Darby, 214, lots of errors on the weekend. Team got whacked. Looks like he's with the B squad for now. Rob Toya, he has to be in everyone's side if he's named there round 1. He looked awesome the other day. Tackled his heart out as well, which is great. And then got some nice last touch assist and ran the footy really well. And then Isaiah Yongi and also Joash Papali'i. He had a really fun game. Both of those guys actually. A nice try assist for Yongi in very short minutes, and then Papali'i with a really solid hit out as well, obviously with plenty of tries and assists against some B grade type of players, but he's coming from that level himself and he dominated. So great to see from those two guys. And we're going to leave the Cash Cow Bible, Cash Cows 2025 there, 400k and below. I hope that one helps you with obviously sorting out your round 1 squad and looking at guys you might go, oh, they're next up and they're really cheap. I might slot them in for now. And I think that's not a bad strategy. If you do that for one guy, not like sort of 2 or 3, I think you'll be sweet. Because some of the cheapies are just a bit average anyway. So you pop them in if they get a start in round 1 and they're not that great. So you may as well pick, sometimes you may as well pick the guy that's next up that's a bit of a gun. So check that one out when you're putting your team together. And a big thanks for you guys for coming in here for the Cash Cows in 2025. Getting very close now. We're a week and a half out basically from round one, and I can't wait for it. See you guys.